With both the Chinese and Russian presidents staying away from the two-day gathering in New Delhi, the EU wants to seize the moment, according to people familiar with the preparations who asked not to be named discussing internal strategy. The 27-nation bloc aims to show that it is serious about redefining its partnership with Africa, despite the troubled legacy of colonialism, they said.
It looks like the European Union has become that guy, the one who schemes to hit on you at an event when they find out that your significant other won't be there. Sounds like African leaders attending the G20 in the absence of Russia and China are going to have to put up with being backed across the room by Western officials getting all up in their personal space like every creep does at nightclubs. The Western press is reporting that the EU is planning to avail itself of the global summit as an occasion to step up its outreach, getting all touchy-feely with the global south on the sidelines, which sounds like something for which you need a safe word while out at the club so that your bestie can come and rescue you. It's not like EU leaders have been too subtle about their intentions either. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz made a trip back in May to African Union headquarters in Ethiopia and announced that Germany wanted the G20 to make it official with the African Union.
We want to support the African Union getting a seat in the G20 so that it can participate and have a say in decision-making. Africa must play a bigger role in international relations, a role that does justice to the continent and its growing population.
Given that Africa is currently on a spree of coups that effectively eject European neocolonialist interests that have been getting a little too handsy with African resources for far too long, Africa just might not be in the mood to entertain Western promises of commitments which, so far, have yet to materialize. Or the usual Western pickup lines either. For example, here's Zambia's opposition leader putting silver-tongued playboy Washington in its place during Vice President Kamala Harris's visit.
A country that has toppled so many governments in Africa, that has led so many coups in Africa and other parts of the world. A country that has killed so many of our leaders in Africa and other parts of the world. The killers of Patrice Lumumba, those who toppled Kwame Nkrumah, those who killed Muammar Gaddafi, today are coming to teach us about democracy.
The American vice president's trip is part of a Western seduction strategy born of fear that Africa just might want to date around, specifically with Russia and China. It's the kind of clinginess that typically comes from insecurity. They only seem to ever want to be bothered making an effort when they feel that they have competition, which apparently hasn't escaped the attention of experts.
These are basically desperate kicks of a dying horse. Africa is surely slipping out of its hands. If you look at the growing ties between Beijing and Africa, between Moscow and Africa, Africa does have very much preferable and much more viable and friendly alternatives in terms of development partners in Russia and China. And Europe just has to wake up and smell the coffee.
For years, we've been begging for a seat, a permanent seat at the UN, Security Council, at the UN. They have refused to give it to us for whatever reason. And so when decisions are taken, Africa does not have a voice. Why suddenly are they interested? Obviously, because of BRICS, So for me, it's hypocritical. It's never late, but I see it more like a divide and rule. Because when they do that right now, they divide Africa along two parts. Those that are pro-BRICS and those that are pro-G20. So the idea is not for the love of Africa. The idea is still in perpetuation of the selfish agenda that has continued to dominate the relationship between Africa and the EU.
This insecurity over what Russia and China might have to offer Africa would also explain why, right after Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov toured Africa last year, Joe Biden had to interrupt his nap schedule and go all the way over to Egypt for the COP27 summit, while Secretary of State Antony Blinken blitzed the continent on visits to South Africa, Congo, and Rwanda. Now, perhaps the EU will find a way to somehow build new and better ties with Africa, but their best shot comes from being totally honest and authentic about what they really want, rather than like the creep at the bar who pretends that he has absolutely no agenda.